Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, Drew. Likelihood that Tesla will have spin off their energy business, including their charging business, to avoid being a monopoly. I mean, I think you know, if there's no competing charging standard in the U.S., then they may have to do some weird stuff to avoid any monopoly lawsuits. But I really think with the trend that Tesla is on right now, some of their long-term threats is monopoly risk more than anything, which is kind of fascinating to think about. Noah, let's go to you. What do you think about this news? How you doing, brother? I haven't seen you in a while. I'm sure you're busy as hell. What's going on?
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. No, I'm super excited to hear about GM. It feels like it's a domino effect now, right? So Ford and then GM, and like, man, I'm excited to see what happens next. I mean, I had kind of a thought for us too, is like, do we think it's because GM is a US based company that like they were the second mover, so to speak, after Ford? And like, I would assume that it would be kind of a slower rollout for the other manufacturers who are, have more influence in other markets like the European market or what have you. I don't know. What do y'all think of that?
As far as like how much longer they're going to take to come on?
Yeah, like Volkswagen and other like manufacturers who aren't like US based per se.
I see. I mean, I think if you're a large automaker and you're selling EVs in the States and you're not going to be on NACS right now, like if you don't announce something, like you're immediately at a competitive disadvantage. Because now it's not just Tesla that has the better charging network, it's also GM and Ford. So if, it's funny because I was recording a video with my media guy, David, that we were going to launch on Sunday, talking about when is the next domino to fall. And then literally after I get off the call and he starts working on it, this thing gets announced. I'm like, okay, David, looks like we're going to have to scrap it. So we'll see what happens there. But I think the dominoes, I think it's like, I'm going to make a very crazy prediction potentially. And I would love to get your reaction. I'll throw it to you, Ishan. I think every major automaker will have announced NACS standard by the end of the summer in the US.
I totally agree. But what I want to touch upon is the announcements are nice to have, in a polite sense of saying it. But when do we really get the NACS plug in the vehicles? Ford has been very strong.
Oh. Looks like Ishan needs stronger internet.
Get the plug in by
there he is.
2025. Yeah, sorry.
You're super laggy. Okay, you're back.
Okay, so I was just saying that, the question is, when do we actually get the plugs in the cars? So, Ford was very clear on their timelines. GM, not so much. Kind of expected that. But if you think of it from a strategic point of view, I would think that, Hyundai is scrambling. They're going to their drawing board. They have a factory coming up in the US. I think, any vehicle that rolls out of that factory will have that plug. Rivian, Lucid is small, but still, it has a brand. Rivian, I think, can switch pretty quickly. It's a pretty agile company. Stellantis, I think I think Stellantis is probably the only one who might make your statement untrue, Farzad.
Perhaps you're right. Perhaps. Welcome in Yashu from Hit That Bid, my Canadian brother from another mother. Yes. I haven't talked to him in a while, but I'm super happy to have him on. Yashu, what are your thoughts here, man? Did Mary finally lead? Where are we at?
Oh, guys, finally. Well, good to see all of you. It's funny because I was looking. We're all kind of trying to decipher for the last couple of weeks. Like, what is up with the stock price? Like, why does the stock price keep rallying in the face of market just being average to mid? Even when Nvidia was ripping, AI was the hot shot topic. Even then, Tesla wasn't even ripping as much as I thought it would. And then for the last little bit, we've been seeing these gradual updates. And even after hours, I think 2 or 3 days ago when we saw that 1 or 2% update after hours, everyone's like, what? This comes out of nowhere. Volume is high. So I think if there's one thing we learned today, it's that no one in the White House or GM or Ford can keep their mouth shut. Obviously, people are buying and selling, buying mostly in this case, Tesla in anticipation for this rumor. After hours, Tesla's up 3%. And it goes to show you that the market sometimes can be rigged against the regular retail folk. People obviously knew about it. I don't know. Someone would someone would be hard pressed to explain to me any other rationale other than insiders knowing about this news coming out with the relative strength of Tesla. So, long story short, is this? I'm kind of trying to toy with this a little bit. Is this the last partnership? I know you guys are talking about a couple of different companies. I don't see how Rivian puts their face out there and says, "Yeah, we're going to be joining Tesla's network." Yet, I think Rivian probably tries to go it alone. I think they have a lot of ego still tied on with their Amazon investment, and I think they might actually be able to do it. Lucid maybe, but I mean, there's like what 10 Lucids in the whole world or something like that. So I just don't know if any other partnership right now makes sense. Volkswagen, perhaps if Herbert Diess was still around, but again, now it's going to kind of be like I think the commonality here with the charging network has been American brands, and I'm not sure who's next or if there is even a next, because Mary did say are kind of, didn't she say like top three are kind of, or she kind of referred to them together as one group. So I'm not sure who's next.
But what do you think about the notion, though, that if you don't announce a charging stand like NACS, you're immediately at a huge disadvantage, because now you're not just losing to Tesla, now you're losing to Ford and GM. Don't you think that's going to push the hand of these folks?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, no, it makes sense, because I mean, I hear it day to day. I know someone that has a Mach-E that I haven't spoken to since the Ford partnership came out, but I'd be curious to get his take on it now, because that was one of the gripes that he had. He's like, my Mach-E is average to low range. Like he's like, he's like, by the time I drive on the highway, my efficiency is not that awesome. Like I don't get a lot of range out of my Mach-E. And so I'd be curious to see if that changes him wanting to keep his Mach-E, right? Because this is the guy that wanted to sell his Mach-E and look into some sort of a Tesla maybe, or actually go back to gas. But you're right. Now it's like this conglomerate that you have to fight against that was just Tesla, but now it's Tesla plus Ford plus GM. But to be fair, other than, I mean, there's not a lot of unit volumes happening other than Tesla still. Maybe this helps them.
For sure. And when you think of like non-Tesla EVs, like that's kind of how I have it branded in my mind. And it's obviously in Tesla's favor when you think of like non-Tesla EVs. I was looking at vans, specifically like the e-Sprinter, that really caught my eye because the range, and obviously the Ford Transit, e-Transit has sold more than, any other electric van at this point. And so until the announcement, the charging standard announcement, I was heavily looking at Mercedes-Benz and probably ordering 2 or 3 for my company. But then Ford made their announcement, and the mileage, I think the max range on the Mercedes was like 250, I want to say. And then the Ford is maybe 150. But then I was thinking about it. I was like, would I rather have the supercharger network, or would I rather have more range? And to be completely honest, I would rather have the supercharger network. Like that was a deciding factor for me as a small business owner. Like I would rather have the Ford. And so now that GM is also, jumping on the standard, whatever the standard's called. Thank you. I'm hoping that other automakers will also move in that direction as well.
See, at some point there's an inflection point, right? Hyundai Kia, right? It's basically the same company. I think they're going to move next because it really doesn't make sense. They are, they're not beholden to anybody. They will absolutely choose whichever is the better option for them to go to. Till date, NACS was not an option, but now that it's been open source, people are moving. I think Hyundai Kia will be next. Then GM and Honda have a partnership on a platform. So I think Honda will come. They're building an EV together. So I believe Honda will come. And where Honda goes, Nissan goes. So, and by extension, Nissan is like the Renault Nissan conglomerate again. I think you'll start seeing eventually people going the Toyota way. We're gonna do both, right? Especially the European ones, be it Volkswagen or Mercedes. I believe they will provide NACS for North America, or at least an adapter, and they'll have CCS as the primary one in their home markets, because there is, at the end of the day, no reason to not give their customers access to the better charging network. I think, if I'm not mistaken, when it comes to plugs and reliability, Tesla is more than the rest of the supercharging networks combined. um, Correct me if I'm wrong, but you
Yeah.
know
That
I
sounds
would say
right.
this
that's generally
completely
right.
doubles. Yeah, it doubles the charging availability for any car that's moving to NACS. So,
And last point I'll make, I have to hop off here, is that Elon said this multiple times, but he's said, look, you don't need past a certain amount of range. Putting in more battery past a certain power, past a certain amount of range is that marginal benefit is nothing. And so the supercharger network is so crucial because when we did our long road trip for 12-hour drive, it wasn't that we were getting there at 10 or 20% battery and we were charging to 100% before we left. We were arriving there at 10 or 20% and charging to 50, 60, just enough to get us to that next stop. And so that marginal time difference you make up in the speed of charge. So I think you don't need the actual battery size to be that big for 95% of people's use cases day to day. So everyone has this kind of fight over who can get the most range, and I think that's the wrong battle to pick. I think the better battle to pick is if you ever needed range in a jiffy, could you get it? And that's what the supercharging network is so underestimated or underappreciated for, I think, but starting to get there at least. Love the show, love the discussion. I'll continue to listen, but I have to hop off here. Take care, guys.
Bye,
See you,
Yashu.
bro.
You look so dashing, by the way, you handsome devil.
Wow, thank you. What a compliment from Farzad.
You're
That means a
welcome.
lot. Take care. See ya.
See you later, brother.